Welcome. This is the next episode of the Get Back with Dombek. I'm Andrew Dombek, the host of the Get Back with Dombek podcast. I also own AID Performance Physical Therapy, and today we have a special guest. This is one of my current clients that she's new to the practice, but during the initial evaluation, I was just taken by her story of how she got to this point in her life. And she is a Division I soccer player. She came from a tiny town in Texas, El Paso, Texas. I think that's right?
Right. No.
And I'm going to let her tell the story of how she became a Division I soccer player, and then we'll get into how we met. So welcome, Kimberly, Hubert.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. So tell me about your journey from El Paso to Texas to Virginia.
Well, thank you first for inviting me. This is really nice to share my story. So like you said, I'm from El Paso, so it's not a big city like, you would think of Dallas, Houston, but it's definitely, somewhere that I'm glad that I was born and raised there. Very good, predominantly Hispanic. So that's what I am. I'm Hispanic, so I love the culture. So, soccer is very popular, as you could imagine, in El Paso. So, I've always grown. My dad tried to have me, try every sport, and I don't know what it was about soccer. I was just so stubborn with soccer. So I was just like, my dad's like, you're a better basketball player. I'm like, no, I really, really like soccer. So I kind of stuck with it, and I think the first moment that really, I guess I had that dedication to like, this is what I'm going to do, was more so when I think I was 4. Okay, I started soccer when I was playing 4. And my mom, one time I got kicked in the face with the ball hit me in the face. My mom walks over to me and I'm about to start crying. And, she tells me, there's no crying in soccer. And I look at her and I'm confused. And I'm like, what's she talking about? I just got hit in the face.
Has she never seen a men's soccer, a professional men's soccer game?
See, and that's the thing with my parents, and I love them for it. They were always so, I guess they've always pushed me to be tough. And I think where I've gotten, I think that toughness has shaped me to the person that I am today, and was able to help me, accomplish a lot of the things that I've accomplished. So she looked at me, she said, there's no crying in soccer. So I looked her dead in the eyes and I was like, you know what, she's right. And, at that time I was, I think early on in my development of, playing serious soccer, competitive soccer, I knew I made it a point to play with the boys, because I knew at that level I wanted to be more ahead of any girl at that age. And so, I went ahead and I started joining the boys teams at that age. And I enjoyed it. Especially since I was the only girl on the team, they would always laugh at me and be like, you don't belong here. You don't belong here. And, I always kind of looked at them, and that I'm stubborn, and that just motivated me. Like, you don't want me here. I'm going to be here 10 times more now. I want to be present. So, I tried out for some other girls teams there in El Paso. And it was always the same thing. She has too many bad habits. She's not going to fit in. No, we have too many players. Sorry, but you just had tryouts, for the past week and a half. So I know you have slots. So, that was always, as a young kid, I was able to differentiate where I was wanted and where I wasn't wanted. And, at that age, a lot of kids are like, maybe it isn't for me, But again, the instillment that my parents, forced onto me was, it doesn't matter, Why not you? The girl next to you got it. Why not you? So I kept working at it. And unfortunately, there's only so many club teams in El Paso. It's popular, but it's not very, I guess, advanced there. And I think that they have a lot of room for development there with soccer. So I tried, little Las Cruces teams, New Mexico, that's right next to El Paso. I went out to camps in Dallas, Houston, just to try to get myself, noticed. So I actually found this team around 8 years old, and I loved that club team. At the time, they're El Paso Heat, it was a great group. We won a state championship, so that was something else that just sparked me. I was like, if I can get a championship at 8 years old, what can I do when I'm 20? So I kept playing. Then I hit a slump around 8th grade. I kind of realized that the club teams were just making me worse rather than helping me advance. So I knew what I need to work on. I knew what, where I was lacking. So I just progressively started working on little things, and I focused so much on high school soccer. So I felt very left out because the girls around my age at that time were trying out for the early Olympic developmental teams. They're trying out for all that, and unfortunately, they're very expensive, and that was just, my parents have helped me a lot, and, we were pretty well off. So it wasn't, like I was really struggling, but there's a difference from $5,000, every month to.
As a single dad who pays for soccer, you don't have to explain to me.
Uniforms, fees for tournaments, and that's a high level already for that age. So the early Olympic developmental team, it's called ODP. At that time it was getting progressively very expensive. So I was like. And I'm not the only kid, So I have four other siblings. So I just didn't want to give my dad a heart attack. I was like, I was a very mature kid at a young age. So long story short, I just dedicated all my time into high school. And I wanted to break the chain of people saying, you're not going to make it unless you're in an ECNL team or unless you're in an ODP team. You're not going to make it during just high school. They're not going to come see you. And my angle was, they might not come see me, but I'm going to go to them. They might not come to me, but I'm going to go to them. So, long story short, I trained senior year, broke my nose, kind of threw off my, my seasons. I was like, why, and out of everything, it's my nose. I needed to breathe, I'm running miles. I needed to breathe. So, it didn't work out my senior year. And I remember it was the last game of my senior year before I couldn't continue playing. And it was pouring. It was just pouring, and they were about to cancel the game. And I saw that there was a scout in the stands. There's a college coach there, a Division III coach. And, again, my dad and my mom have always looked out for me whatever way they can. And so he heads out to the parking lot ready to leave because it's pouring. And my dad chases him to the parking lot. He's like, no, sir, you don't understand. You haven't seen my daughter. And he's like, who's your daughter? So he comes back, and he ends up watching me play. And, I've always seen opportunity, maybe it not come in the package that you want it, but it's an opportunity. And so I took that opportunity with them. And, I got a few other offers from other schools, but I don't know what it was to that. I knew that I had to start my journey there. So I started a Division III program there in Alpine, Texas at Sul Ross State. And I just worked there. I knew I was a freshman. I knew he had people that he already had. I knew he had a system, but I knew that I had to make myself a part of that system. So I started, playing there. I broke my wrist at one of the years. I started as a freshman. I played, college soccer. It was a wake-up call because, not necessarily for me because I've always been at a competitive level of soccer and I've always been dedicated, but it was a big wake-up call for me, and not in the sense that I wasn't ready for it, but I was ready for more. So at that level, I was like, it's not clicking for me. I know that I'd be settling for less if I stayed here. Not necessarily towards the school because they initially gave me that first opportunity, but for myself, I owed it to myself. So I after my, first semester, it was the fall, after my second season with Sul Ross State, I entered the transfer portal willingly because I knew it was late. It was going into the spring. They weren't going to really recruit me at that time. So I kind of just left it in God's hands, and I was like, if you recruit me, you recruit me. So I left it just hoping, and it clicked, and I got a few Division I offers. Some in New York City, some in Chicago, just everywhere. And, it was kind of like my film. You can't lie. How they say ball doesn't lie. And so my film just showed that. And I had to have, believe in myself and know that I was able to do that. So they offered me the most at Chicago State. And that was the first Division I program that where I was currently at. So I played there. I showed up in the spring. They brought me along early so that I can be ready for the fall. Shortly after there, I knew that there's going to be adversity again. He has his system. It was a losing program. He was a new coach, so he needed to get the ball rolling. He needed players that were going to make a change, and that was the agreement. So I went in, and I was a contributor right off the start. We got our first recorded win as my first cap there as a Cougar. And so, I was like, I can make a difference here. And I was playing center mid, so it was a lot of running. I don't know if everyone's aware of center mids, a 6 or 8. Oh my gosh, it's so much running. So I was like, this is really what I wanted though. And so I didn't mind where I played. And so I played there for 2 years. My senior year, which was this last spring, since of COVID, they pushed our season a bit back. So we started in the spring instead of the fall. We were going to start playing, and we played against a Big East team, Marquette University. Pretty good team. I played very well. And the following day, we had a workout session just to ease our way into maybe a break. And I finally got into the break, and, I was feeling great. The next morning, I couldn't walk. And I'm like, why can't I walk? I just started. What is this? And I'm very I'm not injury prone, but I like to take care of myself because I know I have to be on the field. So if I can take care of certain things, like icing or stretching, or I do make sure I do it. It's very essential. I think athletes forget that, the healing process is very important to your performance. And so, so I couldn't walk, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I go over to my trainer, and I'm like, look, I don't know what happened. I can't walk. And it was just very irritating. He's like, did you get stepped on? Did you slide wrong? And I'm like, no, nothing happened. So, long story short, that week we're going to go play in El Paso, Texas, my hometown. So I'm like, oh, this is so exciting, but I can't play because my foot's not working. So I rehabbed for about a week or so, and it's expensive. Chicago to Texas is so far away. So, and it's 23 something girls. So there was a travel list. I didn't make that travel list that week. So I was like, okay. It's kind of iffy because it's my hometown. I wanted to play. So I was like, that's fine. Finally, he says, we're going to end up being there for a week because we have to play at UTRGV, Rio Grande Valley in Texas. So there's no point in you guys missing out on a week and a half maybe. So I want you to be with the team. So he bought tickets for everybody. So I basically was going to probably be like a team manager or something, just helping out with the girls and stuff. But that wasn't going to help me get better so that I can help my team out because we had a conference starting that week and I need to play. So my coach is like, no, you have to go. So long story short, I kind of was pushed to getting onto the field and playing. I played the first game. We played them twice, New Mexico State University. We played them twice. First game, I played 10 minutes. I felt great. I felt ready. I was rehabbing really strong and really aggressively, so I was ready. Second game, he puts me in. And we really didn't want to lose against them. We lost against them prior year, double overtime. So we knew this was a win that we could have gotten. And so he puts me in. I'm a starting right back. So he changed my position completely. This is about maybe 20 to 30 games. And I'm saying training sessions too of me being a defender. I've always been a center mid or a right winger or something attacking. So as a defender, I'm going out there and performing, and I do one slide tackle. I feel great. I'm ready. I'm back in the game. And, 10 minutes in, it's just a girl comes, instead of for the ball, she comes for my knee, and it's just gone. And that was just, I knew something was wrong. And I'm not a big crier because I tell you that story with my mom. She says there's no crying in soccer. So she heard me on the live stream, almost not screaming, but she knew I was hurt. And I just kind of knew it. And it was my senior year. I was ready to be done with soccer if the professional route didn't work out for me. But I was just like, oh, no, God, no. I was doing great. I had a lot to prove. And not only for other people, but for myself. And not necessarily to prove the people that didn't believe in me wrong, but to prove the people that did believe in me right. And my dad always tells me that. And so I was like, I get seen later on, and they're kind of scared that it was my whole knee. And instead luckily it was just my ACL. So that's what led me to come to Ashburn back home in Virginia. My family moved from Texas to Virginia, and, I was just kind of like, I need to find somewhere that I'm going to fit. And I was at a couple of centers, and it just didn't fit, whether it was not aggressive enough. It was, we'll just kind of treat it. Let's be slow at things. No. And then I came and I saw your clinic. I was like, okay, let's give it a try. I think this one's it. Let's give it a try. And, it was so aggressive. Even like yesterday, you're like, you're going too slow. And in my head, I'm thinking already, like, I'm going too slow. And I'm used to like going through my workouts, just crushing them. And it's taught me patience. You have to be slow at this and pay attention, because if not, you can possibly injure something else. But in a nutshell, that's my story. I started in a garage just by myself, and not knowing what to do, I taught myself YouTube videos. This is what I heard from another player. This is what I've learned watching film at the age of 13. Like, this is what I need to work on. This is what this is doing. This is how this pro player is playing. Do I want to play like that? And so it was just a matter of if you wanted it or not. And I definitely wanted it. So, yeah.
No, it's a great story, and I relate so much because you met my daughter, I think, yesterday,
Yes.
and I went through the same thing. I'm like, you're so good at basketball, can't we do multiple sports?
Yeah.
Why just soccer? And it's just that love. She's got that love for the game, but I know it was funny because I think it was like I'd already asked you to be on the podcast, and I'd posted something on Instagram. And I saw this like, what's your IG handle?
No villain, too great. The two's at number 2, and the 8 at the end is for the great. So
yeah. So I noticed that I'd seen this like liking my posts, and I was like, lots of people I don't always click on their profile, and so I clicked on the profile, and I'd noticed like you've been looking at my posts for probably 4 to 6 weeks prior to coming in to the clinic. So I was just like, wow, this whole podcast, social media stuff maybe works, because that's been the whole thing, is we're trying to get more patients like you, more ACLs, more athletes getting injured to come into the clinic. Right. So that was just a side note. That was just, I thought that was pretty cool that finally, we're doing something that kind of pays off. So the obstacles that you've overcome is small town, parents not, being, you got good enough money, but ODP is, soccer is super expensive. Then what was it like transitioning from El Paso to Chicago?
So like I said, it was, I've always just known El Paso. I've never really traveled anywhere else other than tournaments for soccer. And even then it was in a range of like maybe the next city over. Chicago was definitely a culture shock. Not just a culture shock, but it was the cold. Oh my goodness. I went from dry heat to super, super cold. So it was just, and not to mention that it was a rough area where my college is at, south side of Chicago. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but again, my dad's like, no, you're not going there. You're not going there. And I'm like, no, you know what, Dad, again, this is an opportunity. I might not like the packaging, but it's an opportunity. So, it was great. It was definitely a culture. Like, again, there wasn't a lot of Mexicans. I think people forget that there's a large span of different Hispanics. So I was there. It's a predominantly African American school. So when I got there, I was just glad to bring something to the table. Diversity is so important, especially in the game of soccer. And my coach at the time, he was a Brazilian, and he had that Brazilian mix to soccer. Just the same thing with Mexican soccer, or Hispanic soccer in general. You watch Mexico play, they're very tactical, very technical. Pass, rather than pass, go and pray that the forward gets the ball and just shoot the ball. And I think that's a lot of American soccer now, that they depend on maybe a few players. And I wanted to win with a team, not with star players. So that was something that was very instrumental to my decision in picking what school I wanted to play at. And at the time, Chicago State was a fit. So even though it was a culture shock, I was thousands of miles away from school, and it was worth it. And I was like, this is for a better cause. And it was definitely, I'm very family oriented. So being away from my family, Sol Ross, my first school was maybe 2.5 hours away. So I was able to drive back and forth. Chicago, I can't do that. So, but that was maybe one of the bigger things, just being away from my family.
What did you major in at Chicago State?
So it was a major in psychology. So I have 2 years of eligibility left. So I'm trying to get a master's degree in clinical psych, or maybe sports psych, and in efforts of just playing again. And maybe that would be great if I could just use those 2 years and get my master's while doing it. So.
You mentioned a couple schools were looking at you when you came in. What teams are looking at you, and what do we need to do to get you to that next level?
So I definitely have been going in the same process that I did out of high school. It's the same process, same lengthy process of emailing coaches, film. I didn't ask anyone to create my film for me. I put it together. I made sure I did it. So I've been, just shooting out emails. And, I think at this point, coaches are not necessarily looking at my resume of what I've done as a player, but rather she has an ACL reconstruction and she's gone through therapy, which is understandable. At the end of the day, it's a business and they need players that are going to come and make a change. And unfortunately, I'm not there yet, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to get there. So, UVA, University of Virginia, I emailed them and they actually emailed me back. And that was kind of, a little, they're saying, we don't doubt it that you're not talented, if you were to perhaps come in the fall as a student, and we can maybe perhaps talk more about that. So maybe they're, maybe thinking a walk-on. Didn't get into it too into depth on that. But University of Pittsburgh, same thing. Very great player. We don't question that at all. But if I were to add players right now, it would be players that can play right away. So there's a long list of teams too. Not questioning my my ability, but rather, we need someone that's healed. And that's why I got released from Chicago State as a senior. We had 3 seniors. I was the 4th. I didn't get re-signed. Everyone else did, which is understandable. Again, it's a business at the end of the day. It would have taken too long to heal. But like I said, I just, that's another chip on my back, and I love it because it pushes me. And I think injuries they're great, but they're also bad. I don't think anyone likes them, but I like them because it exposes on how much I want it. Exposes me to a certain degree. How much do you want this? And I don't feel I'm just kind of done. I really haven't gotten there yet. And, it's pushing me a little bit more. So, Xavier University, same thing, hey, you know what? Great player. But, we need players right away. And, of course, the timing, too. A lot of the coaches have already recruited players for the fall. So I need to understand that, too, and be realistic. So, we'll try again this fall, getting stronger with you. That gives me an opportunity to be patient and get strong. And so when at the end of the fall season it comes around, I'm ready for the spring. So,
yeah, we're going to work on that, and then we can always videotape you in the office, showing off your strength and, yeah. Get you in with some good personal trainers. We have an alumnus of Xavier Soccer. He did pretty well there. He's going to be a future guest on our podcast, Sam Surjai. He's a local soccer player now. Right. But yeah, I've told my daughter, initially, they look at the ACL as a disadvantage. Right. However, it shows a level of perseverance, dedication, hard work, and that you were able to overcome an obstacle, as opposed to the other players. We don't necessarily know per se what they're going to do when the chips are down, or when we're down 1-0. We know that Kimberly is going to step up because she's faced adversity and she's overcome it. So I think you use it as your motivation to put yourself out there, say, hey, this is what I have, this is what I can do. I've already overcome so much coming from El Paso to moving all the way away from my house. And it seems to be a theme that I've had. I had my niece who's a professional hockey player who left home at like 14, and then my nephew who's kind of gone through a similar thing where he went from, the Atlantic provinces all the way out to Alberta, down to Alabama, to Sweden, to Iowa, to, Pennsylvania, and he's now one step away from realizing his dream is being a pro. So it's, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because of your story and the fight that I recognized in you, that's inspirational. We've also had a sports psychologist on. You could, reach out to him. Watch the podcast on. Seth was fantastic on, helping people getting back, from these injuries. Tell me, who is your one inspiration? Do you have more than one inspiration, or do you have?
I definitely do, and I would say, it's kind of cliche to say, God in general, but definitely it's very personal to me, and not just God in himself, but my family, because especially with this injury, it exposed who's really there for me, and who will really, through the ugly. And especially not being re-signed, this business is so, she's not useful to me, let's move on. And with my family, I'm not like that. I'm always an instrumental piece within my family, and that's very important to me. And through that, I was able to recognize through God that, every time I'm through an injury or I'm through a hard workout and I want to give up and it's hurting in my bones, I remember that Jesus gave up more for me. He went through so much more pain and he put himself in that position so that I can live what I'm currently living. And so that was something for me that, of course I have, players that I look up to, and I have, other people that have been mentors to me, and friends that have been mentors to me and have been there for me. But to answer your question, it would probably be that's my circle, and it's a small dot, but it's very important to me. I don't have external family. It's literally just us 7. And that's very, very important to me. A lot of people, you're a senior, kind of done. And instead they're pushing me. So that's my dot. That's my circle. It's different people, but one. And those are different. Those are definitely my inspirations.
Any female or male soccer players? Now, you talked about, ACLs. There are probably 7 or 8 of the women on the national team that have all underwent ACL reconstructions in their time. So, the coaches listening maybe to this, you can use this, email this podcast out to them and like, hey, there's a lot of great players that have torn their ACL and have come back, better, stronger, faster. Definitely. So, what do you model your game after any player? I guess I found your high school highlight tape, which I was like, wow, look at the foot skills on her.
Yeah, I was the 17, I think year 17, 18, so that one's kind of seasoned, but I've always I love how Julie Ertz plays. I said Julie Johnson the other day, but I forget she got married. So Julie Ertz, she's such a chess piece. And I love saying that word because you can place her anywhere on the field and she can just adapt. I think she was a defender for a while with the USA team, and she moved up as a center mid. And I watched her play for my first time ever in person. And I was like, she's so composed. The game of soccer you may think is like fast, sprint, fast. No, but if you notice, it's the most composed players that are the most talented on the team or on the field for that matter. So Julie Ertz, definitely one of my favorite ones. Abby Wambach, that definitely crazy player in the air, and that's something that I've always needed to work on since I am shorter than most players, especially against Big 10 teams, Big East teams, Pac-12. I
can show you some tricks. I've been teaching my daughter. I was showing her some stuff. She doesn't quite have the ups yet.
Right. Yeah. So I'm looking at a 6'4", 6'3" player, and I'm like, I got this. You might be taller than me, but I'm stronger. So, but yeah. So Abby Wambach. I forget her last name, but she's a new upcoming player, Sophia Smith, yes, right winger. I
watched her yesterday. She got I don't think it was in last night's game. I think I'm behind the game. Right. I think I was watching them play Jamaica, and she got in some time in that game.
She uses her speed. She utilizes her speed, and you may think that she's running the line, but she'll cut you in, and that's so dangerous, and I love that. But overall, my favorite player is probably Kim Little. She's played on Seattle Reign for a while, and she's such a great player. I've loved it, and it's ironic because her name's Kim. So, but she's that footwork again. I thought footwork kills, and if you can get one person to jump one way, you can go another. So, those are definitely a couple of favorite players. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the type of game. My daughter has played for 2 different clubs in the area, and the first club, it was like very long ball oriented, one-on-one. And then her current club plays the beautiful game. It's all passing, possession. And I know we had Richie Burke on the podcast as the head coach of the Spirit, and he took the same strategy to the Spirit. And then now he's adding different pieces to help, expand upon, to build that brand. And even they're talking about, Julie Ertz has been injured, and they're just like trying to find a person that can fill her role, and they've had a hard time doing that. That player, that the cog in the middle is tough to replace. So tell me about one coach who has had the greatest impact on your athletic and career, and why.
So like I said, I've never been too fond of coaches, and that's why I've kind of just took myself in and I kind of coach myself. But My dad, even though he didn't have one clue of soccer, he was always like, and he calls me Tuna, because tuna fish are super like stubborn, and he told me, he's like, Tuna, if you just get faster, if you do this, I know basketball, if you get quick feet, you will burn these girls. And that was my biggest thing, my footwork. As I grew taller and bigger, of course I got slower, but my dad definitely is one of my favorite coaches. I've had super hard coaches, and I don't know if I like speaking about this, because I think upcoming players that play high school and club soccer is thinking like, oh, it's gonna be the same. No, in college it's so brutal. You're center mid, you're playing a forward. You're a forward, oh, you're playing center back. You go into college not playing what you play, and it's kind of a yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am kind of deal. So I never experienced a favorite coach other than my dad until I got to Chicago. And his name was Coach Elton, and he's a Brazilian coach as well. He's the assistant coach at the time. And I remember one time I was just not getting any touches in. My passes were horrible that day. I was struggling so much that day. And my head coach looks at me, he's like, Kim, get out. And it's like that. It's like that. If you're not performing, they're going to go on to the next player. And I'm the first one to sit myself on the bench when I know I'm not performing. And so instead of, him kind of going on to the session, he looked at me, he's like, don't cry. Because I wanted to. It was a year already of struggling with this program. I was playing, I was starting, but I was getting frustrated with myself, because I knew I needed to get to the next level. So he looked at me, he's like, don't cry, you got this. And that was the first time that a coach ever still believed in me. And I went through some rough patches with that program. And there was a time and place where I didn't play for 4 or 5 straight games, not a single minute. And I was frustrated, and there was this one time, and he looked over at the head coach, and he's like, put Kim in. He's like, nope, he didn't want to. And he's like, you need to put her in. And I did, and I got my spark back, and I was playing again better than ever. So, I noticed that, and I pay attention to things. I'm very, detail oriented. So when I saw that, he did something behind closed doors without me even noticing, and that's very important to me. So, he was always that motivational piece for me. And yeah, he would get on me and tell me, you're doing this wrong. But definitely Coach Elton from Chicago State, assistant coach that year, was definitely close to my second favorite to coach ever. And but yeah.
So I also, in doing some research, you've been named a captain of some of your soccer teams. Mm-hmm. What type of leadership style do you have, and what do you think some of the reasons why your teammates chose you for captain?
So I think that my biggest thing was that I've always been the black sheep. I've always been the outcast. Like out of high school, Kim's not going to parties, she's not drinking, she's not cool, she's not. And I knew soccer was my partying, soccer was my drinking, soccer was, I always tell this, and I've said this since high school. You guys can slack on in practice if you want. You guys can just wear the jersey because you just want to wear the jersey and look cool in front of the boys. You can do that if you want to. But if you're not going to be serious about this, don't bring the player next to you down. And I've always told them, either you can celebrate now with nothing, or you can celebrate 15 years with everything that you wanted to accomplish, and then you can celebrate. So that's what I tell people. I'll celebrate once I make it. And so, as in high school, it was very challenging. And, I encourage girls in high school not to get discouraged with other peers, because you might be on a mature level that, this is what I really want. But sometimes people are just, want to just play high school soccer, and that's it. There's nothing beyond that. You can't have false expectations. So as a leader, I think that people sometimes forget that it's not just rules and I'll do this and do that and yelling at people. I think what it is that you're not there. You're not in that position to gain followers. You're in that position to gain more to make more leaders. And that's what I always tell people. I'm not here to be your coach. I'm not your coach. I'm not your mom. So if you want to do it, it's out of yourself. If you want to do it, and I think I told Eden this yesterday. She was, saying that she was really tired, and I told her, I was like, you can never beat somebody that never quits. You can't beat somebody that never quits. You got to find that. And I think that's when I click to my my peers. I click to my athletes or my teammates in general, because they see that. They see that in my eyes when I tell them, you can't beat someone ever, not just in soccer, but anything, And so I think that I didn't get a chance to, captain at Chicago State. But I definitely feel in my heart that, if someone was down, they could come tell me. Or if I saw someone down, I didn't need a badge, to step up in that role and say, hey, you know what, that player's hurting, that player needs this, or, pat them on their shoulder or whatnot. And that to me it's not a badge, it's not the title. It's what what can I do on the sidelines without anyone noticing that's going to make an impact to that one person to be a leader.
So you've mentioned your dad, and you come from a big family, and from my research, you have a very athletic family.
Yes.
What skills have you taken from your family in order to make yourself such a well-rounded player?
That's a great question. I've always noticed, especially now, if I want to, go into the professional route. My dad told me, I think I was in high school, and he looked at me one time and he said, if you don't make it professionally, do you understand that our line is going to keep growing? And I might have just gone through semi-pro or high school, and then now you're going to go maybe to college D1 soccer. And imagine where your kid's going to go. It's just developing from there. So, my dad's always been pretty athletic, super athletic. Basketball, anything that you just give the man, he can do it. My mom, cross-country star in high school, and that's what gave me my endurance, and I'm so grateful for that, especially with the position that I was playing as a center mid and holding mid. So my brother right now is currently at Chicago State as a track runner. So it was a funny story because, again, it's kind of hard, not looking at the Hubert. It's kind of a thing, But, I was nudging at the track coach there, and I was like, look at his times. And he's like, if he works harder than you, I'll put him on the roster. And he saw my brother run, and he's like, oh, yeah, definitely. He's like, I'll take a Hubert any day. And so I think that as a family, as an athletic family, my sister, younger sister, she's a freshman in high school right now at Briarwoods High School. And, she's a volleyball player. And I think once it clicks for her that she's really good, she'll be up there. My sister, a ballet dancer. Caitlin, she's a ballet dancer. So all around just, sports-oriented family. So, but overall, Huberts are known for hard work, and I think that's why we click so much in sports.
So one of the other things, and I'm happy anyone to give advice to my daughter to get her kind of over that the hump, the mental hump, and just kind of she's there, but it's there's like one step missing, and she's not going to learn it from me. She's not going to listen to me anymore. But you mentioned something like you're coaching soccer now, right? What age group are you coaching?
So I used to, in El Paso, I used to coach, do one-on-ones. I think that's very important. Yeah, working with a team is definitely important. And, but in general, that one-on-one time, especially experience, you can't coach experience. And I think that that's something very important to me. So anywhere from the age of 12 and up, I think that's when they can finally make a decision for themselves of this is something I really want. And it's kind of hard because you never can measure when exactly they're going to either stop playing or continue playing. So, age 12 and up, I really love 15-year-olds. I think that's something that, 15 to 16-year-olds is something that's very important. I guess that gap right there, because that's moving them up to college soon. So that's, I'll do one-on-ones there and there. I love little ones though. I think 8-year-olds too, I could get to them too. And it's just my mission, I can get through anybody. And so even if it's have some kids just do soccer or they do sports because they're having trouble at home or they're having, and just being their coach, I can give them that advice, not only as a soccer aspect, but as a friend in general. So those are pretty much the age groups that I usually coach.
Are you coaching with any programs around here yet?
No, I'm not. And I think I briefly mentioned it to you the other day. I wanna see what club I can take and possibly get my license out here in Virginia. It's very different. You need to get a license. So, I know that Loudoun's pretty big and they have a club. So, I don't know. I reached out before I went to college this last semester. I reached out to a couple club teams, and they were definitely interested in me coaching, especially their girls teams, since that would be a little bit of a little push, hey, she's a Division I athlete. If you have questions, you need to go ask her. So, that's. Yeah,
there's quite a few. My daughter plays for the St. James FCV. Mm-hmm. Then you've got Virginia Revolution. You've got Loudoun Soccer. There's probably, I don't know if Leesburg Football Club is still in existence, but there's a lot of.
There's different clubs. Yeah.
I think they're always looking for coaching, especially from former Division I coaches. So my last question is, I don't know. I heard you can sing, and you would sing.
Oh my goodness! I was hoping that wouldn't come up from my skeleton box. I can sing. Yeah, it's actually was the national anthem, official national anthem singer. I'm sorry, for Chicago State. So I was doing that for a little bit for the men's basketball team. So
Oh, wow.
that was definitely an experience.
Do we need to put the music on, or can you do it?
No. I actually have had a lot of allergies. I don't know what it is about Virginia. Every time I come out here,
the allergies are
I'm
horrible
like
here. Yeah.
screeching in allergies. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I sick? And then with COVID, I'm like, am I sick? Am I sick? No, I'm not sick. I'm going through. I'm used to the dry heat, and I come out here, and it's just, it's everywhere. It's the allergies, but.
So I take that's a no.
I would, but yeah, I definitely have. I don't know if you saw some of my videos on Instagram. I have my TikTok too. I have a lot of singing covers and stuff like that. But yeah,
I'll have to take a look. I try not to. It's like a total time suck if you get started.
Oh yeah, you won't stop.
I'm mainly when I'm looking on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really gotten into TikTok. I am using TikTok for social media purposes, but I'm more looking at just what other exercises and people bring up research to say just trying to do that. So what can I better my staff or myself and leadership and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So is there any other take-home messages you want to send out to our listeners before we? I
think for the most part, I definitely put my motivational bubble in one little sitting and talk, but. I think the biggest thing that has sat on me is how stressful it was as a kid and how nerve-wracking it was to feel like I wasn't going to get picked up and potentially play Division I because I didn't play on the best ECNL team or the best ODP team. And I think the biggest take-home message to, if there's an athlete that's listening to me right now and is in that same situation or in an injury like mine right now is that, it's only going to come out of you. And it doesn't matter who tells you because you put that out there. You think negatively, it's not going to happen because you're already helping your enemy. You're already helping that person that told you no. So, again, and then for young athletes, if you're not on the best team, you need to get yourself exposed then. That's where you take yourself in. And, hey, you know what? They might not come to a small town in Texas or Oklahoma or Utah or Ohio, but you know what? I'm going to make myself look big. And you got to email. You don't know how to make a film? There's YouTube. There's some nowadays you can do it.
Huddle's pretty easy.
Yeah, Huddle too. Yeah, and if there's I know there's lower income families that can't afford that stuff, especially Huddle. I think Huddle you need to pay a subscription. You can't do that. Hey, you know what? I was in the high school library, using a computer, finding clips. Just you gotta crop it, fix it, and that's it. But luckily for my family, I had a laptop, and I got it done. YouTube just helped me and. It was because I wanted it that much. And so I don't think you need to be on an Olympic team to be Olympic material. You just need to be yourself material enough to be on an Olympic team because you need confidence. You need that. No one's going to bet on you but yourself. And I think that's the biggest message.
I like that. That's a good way to end the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I look forward to working with you in the clinic. Yes. And hopefully we can get to the next level, playing again.
Yep. We are going to the next level.
We're going to the next level. I can't wait.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll be there. I'll be there when you start.
Oh, definitely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.